Alright, welcome to WGNC Garage. Today we're going to be working on my friend's G35. We're going to be replacing the valve covers, and since we're there, we're going to do new gaskets and the PCV hoses as well. So that's what we're going to be starting today. I will be putting the part numbers that I used at the end of the video as always, so let's get started. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is remove his intake from Z1. Alright, and now we can remove that with pliers. Other than the hose for here, there's this little hose that needs to be removed. There we go, that one broke free. Alright, and then this hose here as well. Alright, so those are all the hoses for the upper half of the intake plenum. I'll be removing some more bolts as well to get the top half of the intake manifold apart. So now we'll be removing all the top bolts from the intake manifold, and don't forget that this one does need to be removed as well. So now that all those are loose, do keep in mind that there are different length bolts. These and then the top ones are a different length than the outer ones. These are a lot shorter. The inner ones are much longer, and the two studs here and then this one right here I did put back in so I don't mix it up with the others and possibly put it somewhere it's not supposed to. So now that that's free, we should be able to slowly pop this off. And that's that side. There it goes. So now disconnect the auto cable. Seems there's still a wire connected. Ah, a nice hidden hose. Okay, so time to get that hidden hose. Oh, the electronic throttle body is probably in the way. Yep. Alright, so it looks like I'm going to have to take the throttle body off. Alright, so we're going to slide this gently back into its position here. And we're going to take these Allens off. 1, 2. There's not one there. Alright. So we got 3. One. So now that the throttle body has been removed, this is the hose that was holding it in place. So we will be removing this clamp and hose. There we go. So now the throttle body can be placed here momentarily. And there's yet another one. This one, I'm not sure if this is a coolant hose or not, but this one will also be there we go. All right, intake manifold is off. So now we got the centerpiece here and ready to take apart the rest. Alright, so before we remove the lower intake manifold, make sure you disconnect any harnesses and stuff that are connected to it. So this is being held, these are being held. There is two little hidden screws. One is here on the front, and there's one right here in the back as well. And then this hose that's there. So we're going to be letting these go really quick. And then the hose we shall release. Alright. So this hose is for the PCV, which it did tear, but we are replacing it with a new one. So I will actually completely remove this from his vehicle, as it is very old and dated. There we go. Alright, so this one is in the kit. It is this one right here that we will be replacing it with a new one. Alright, so we'll end up removing these. Again, I just place these back in so that I don't mess up where they're supposed to go. Especially these little accessory ones where, oh, hidden bracket. One goes there. This one goes here. So now everything should be disconnected from the lower intake manifold. Now we just have to break free these. Now I should be able to wiggle this free. Some of these might. This one. There we go. And off comes the lower intake manifold, which these we will be cleaning later. So now that that's there, this is the lower intake manifold gasket. We will be replacing those. Now we have better access to the valve covers. So we will be removing the harness. There are two connections back here. One is up here, the other one is hidden below this hose. It is this gray piece right here. Obviously this will be connected here, and then as you can see they run here, but these run down. This was the one for his mass airflow sensor, and then there's actually two separate connections. One is for the clutch, the other one is further down, which is the flow meter for his AC compressor. And then this bracket, there are two brackets here, and there's one main bracket here that holds it. So we will be removing all that from the vehicle, as well as this hose and this hose. These two are going to be replaced. If they do not come off easily, I will be cutting them as we have replacements for them. So our it's a little problem with this back connector, not the lower one here. That was just a push tab. But this one, after a little bit of struggling, I figured it out. You're gonna need two hands for this one. So this green tab has to actually be pushed inward. When you push it inward, it's going to eventually release enough to actually pull it back. So very weird design, but it has to be pushed in to release. So that is how you will release that one. And then this clip right here, I'm going to have to release as this sensor is plugged in. This is the oxygen sensor, the upper one for the vehicle. And then this lower one has also been giving me a little bit of an issue. I'll be back once I figure out how to release that. So these two wires, one is up above, that's the clutch. So this lower one is the second one for the AC, which is the flow sensor. So it's a little bit difficult to reach, so I have to squeeze under the car. But for whatever reason, Nissan designed it with the release on top in between the compressor. So this one is going to be a little bit of a pain, but eventually we should be able to release it from here. And there we go. Alright, so that one's released. I can continue releasing the harness from above. Alright, to remove the oxygen sensor clip from there, you just need to go from underneath, push this, and then basically wiggle out the bracket from it. There we go. And there we go. Harness is now released, and this will stay here. This hose may have to be released to remove the cover. I will let you know in a moment if that needs to be. And this one right here is able to press down on this tab and push back to release. So there we go. Harness is almost completely off of the vehicle now. Ooh, there is a ground there. Don't pull on that. And that'll be So now, this is a coolant hose on the Infinity, and it goes to what seems to be the throttle body. However, no coolant came out. Upon squeezing the hose, nothing happens. So we took a look, and unfortunately, he is low on coolant. That's just a bubble. So we will be adding coolant as this car needs once we reassemble everything. So now that we have the harness removed, we're going to have to take out the 6 coils. On this passenger side, as you can see, the fuel system is here, and we might have to kind of fight this a little bit to get the valve cover out, but we'll see what happens there. And then the only other pieces are missing are these two little connections right here that just hold the harness for the fuel injectors. They do have 2 little tabs. You just push them in one side at a time, and then they pop out. This one seems to be missing a side. go. This one here. There. Inside. Inside. Alright, so now those are disconnected from there. Now we just gotta take off the ignition coils. Alright, so after removing the ignition coils and the harness, this little sensor, which is the front camshaft solenoid to adjust the timing, so VCT solenoid, when I tried to push this out, it unfortunately touched here. Now, this pipe in the back is metal. It is being held on by a bracket. If I loosen this, there's another bracket in the back holding it, so this pipe really isn't going to move. So I left this connector here. Now with here, as I mentioned before, this hose is probably going to come off. So this is the heater core hose. And then over here as well, I might actually have to remove the heater core hose from there and help bleed the system out. I also may need to disconnect this fuel from the rail. If I do have to do that, I will be attempting to move it from here. However, we'll be making sure there's a new gasket. Since this is rubber, I can just kind of flex this out of the way. This plastic is what's holding us back right here from this side, as if I try to lift, it does impact it, and I don't want to bend this piping for fuel to cause a leak. So I will first remove this side. There's 10 bolts on each. We do have brand new bolts, as these were quite corroded, so we will be replacing those bolts. Now that we've removed all the bolts from here, we are going to attempt to remove the valve cover without having to remove this. However, that's not normal. Did that break? Looks like this did separate or break. It's supposed to be seated like those. But let's see if we can get this valve cover off without. Okay. 1, 2. These were the little cover bolts. Yeah, there's no bolts in place, so unfortunately she's stuck due to age. Screwdriver. Now we do have new valve covers, so if they were to break or crack, not really a big issue, but we're not going to try to break them. Yeah, so it seems we're going to need to release this in order to remove the valve cover. Since this clamp is broken, it might give us a little extra difficulty in removing it. So I'm trying to see if I can either snap this outer ring out or bend it open, because it's actually supposed to be sitting on top. As you can see here, it's a secondary like clamp. Unfortunately, it's slid off, so I'm trying to see if I can get it so I don't tear through the heater hose, with this one being on top. Oh, there we go. Alright, so now that that one's free, I should be able to slide this top one off. Oh. Looks like that little expansion nub at the top of the pipe is giving it a little bit of an issue. There we go. Alright, so now we should be able to twist to break this free. Alright, so that should allow us to remove this upper heater hose. Looks like it is moving slowly. As you can see, there is a little bit of corrosion hidden in there. Alright, and as expected, it's low on coolant. Coolant is looking pretty rough, so now hopefully should be able to remove this. Yep, and there we go. Alright, so the old valve cover is now removed from the vehicle, and we're all set to clean the surface and put in the new one. Alright, so I wiped down the edges with a rag. Make sure you don't let any debris, or as minimal debris as possible, get inside the engine. This is the gasket material, so I will be scraping that off. Please be as gentle as you can. This is actually not helping. Let me see if I can. There we go. Alright. Now you do want to be careful not to remove the extra sealant over here, as that's for a different part of the engine. So I'm just removing the little bit that was involved with the valve cover gasket. Alright, now we clean up the rest with a wire brush. So since I had to take out the hose and there was a little bit of corrosion, I'm going to put this, I put this rag here to prevent any debris from entering the engine, but I will be cleaning this up to the best of my ability. And I've already cleaned the gasket, but any surface really that has any sort of liquid, if there's any corrosion, I would highly recommend trying to clean it off, make sure it'll seal as good as possible. Alright, now that we've cleaned everything off, we're going to go ahead and replace this heater core hose since we're already here. Just because if it does break in the future, I'd have to disassemble half the engine just to get to it again. So we'll be replacing that, as well as that heater core hose over here with the little plastic piece. These lines right here, they do use an O-ring, so we will be removing these so that I can get better access to that valve cover. So I took these two bolts out of this here. You could release up front, it's just I'm seeing it that it's easier to move here as one piece with this and just kind of place it off to the side. Just do be careful if there is fuel pressure. Hand me a rag, please. I'm gonna place one underneath here just to be safe as I wiggle this free, just in case there's any extra fuel pressure, which this whole piece needs to move back as one. That's actually quite a long piece. There we go. Okay. So not much fuel actually spat out. So we're good. I am going to keep a rag here. Hand me another rag just in case. I'm going to wrap this up in case some fuel decides to spit out. So we'll cover this up with that. Now, these bolts which came out of there, I'm going to place back in here temporarily. Now we can take this, unplug this connector, and there we go. And now this can actually freely move, so we can move that out of the way.
So about the O-ring kit from from Harbor Freight.
Yeah, we'll go get one soon enough. There we go. There we go. All right. No fuel coming out of that. Now we can get access to this heater hose and this wiring harness, which I'm going to remove this. And there we go. All right, this is a separate harness. That one we'll place there. And then this big Infinity harness can now move a little bit more out of the way. Now this one, I don't know where it goes, so we're gonna have to leave that there, but I can move this. However, this... Alright, so now that we've got this side loose, this is just like the other one. It does have a clip underneath, which you can actually access here. And pull this off of that bracket. And I'm going to hopefully attempt to remove this bracket as well from this piece here. Actually, I think Alright, so now we're going to remove this heater core hose. So it's a 3-piece, 1 being this short section, 2 being this plastic, and then 3 being this hose that runs from the plastic to here. So I'm going to take it off as one part and hopefully go get a new one. Alright, so we were able to get the back one off. However, the front one's a little bit difficult. It does have this like protective layer that I'm going to slowly slice off without touching the original hose inside. See if I can slide that clamp up further and not damage the hose in case the local auto parts doesn't have one. Alright, there we go. Oh, that has has corrosion on it. Ow. Let's see if I can slide this up a little bit more and take this hose off. Alright. See if we can get it to twist free. Ooh. This is gonna tear. See if I get lucky and can twist it. Nope. Yeah, that's not gonna come off. I'm gonna have to cut it. Alright, so I ended up having to cut this hose off, and it is very stuck on this metal piece. There we go. Even on the back half. Oh, there we go. Alright, it is out. Time to get a new one. Alright, so we were able to get the hose off. We will be ordering a kit to replace it. However, I did have to cut it off. So we got a 90. We're going to make a T and put in a temporary patch so that the car can be driven while the kit arrives on Z1 with all these pieces new in a silicone, and I believe the T is in aluminum. So now we just got to take off the valve cover. Since the hose has been removed and everything is loose, we should be able to remove everything and get this valve cover off. So all these bolts are 10mm, so we'll be removing them and taking that valve cover off. We got all the bolts loose. Slowly take this cover off and loosen it. There we go. And hopefully with all this out of the way, there we go. Valve cover is off. Now, just like on that side, I'm going to remove this excess silicone and clean up the edges so we can put on the new valve covers with the new gaskets, and clean this up as well with a wire brush and make sure everything is clean for reassembly.